Welcome to Fopy's Creations, and hello again to those who have come over from Fopy's France, and thank you very much for your loyalty and for subscribing. This is my first practical, so I'm starting with showing you something I consider it fairly simple, and it was one of the first things that was asked for in the comments. So today, as you've probably seen from the thumbnail, I'm making a bottle bag. It's a bag that actually holds one of the little chili bottles, which, if you bear with me, I will show you. There we go, one of these bottles. This is actually called a chili bottle, but there are other makes out there. It's just basically a little thermos flask, which saves you having to keep buying plastic bottles, and so you can reuse this all the time. It keeps your water really lovely chilled for drinking, and this is a perfect size to carry with you when you're walking. But when you're holding it like this and it's cold and it's just inconvenient, so the bottle carrier holds that just on your, about around your hip area, and then it's convenient. Your hands are free, you can be taking photographs where you are or anything, and of course, or using your phone. So yeah, so that's what I'm making. Again, those of you that already know me know that I had an injury recently, so a lot of what I've done has been a little bit hindered by this injury, and I'm a bit limited at the moment to do things as I would normally do. I'm unable to go to my craft room because 2 flights of stairs is just a little bit too much. So I'm working with what I've managed to remember to ask Duncan to bring down. There's a few supplies like fabrics and my scissors and sewing machine, things like that. So yep, so it's all I've been able to do really is talk crafting and show you what I've done crafting as quite a big umbrella, it really, isn't it? As in, I like to paint, I like to draw, I like to make cards, I like to basically anything I can do with my hands. And you say even gardening and cooking and everything, but there's obviously I can only do a certain amount on here. It will be a bit mixed because that's just my nature. I do like to flip between things, keep interest going and keep me motivated. And in doing this channel, it's ignited my motivation to do these things, and because you want to see it, it gives me a kick up the bum, for want of a better word, to do this. So yeah, I'm still in a similar situation at the moment because I'm still having to wear a boot to support my foot. I've had 3 weeks in plaster and 3 weeks now with this boot. Even today, I think I may have overdone it yesterday. It feels a little bit warm and a bit sore, so I'm trying to take it easy today. I went to see my oncology doctor last week actually for a checkup, and she was shocked to see the boot. She said in French, she sort of literally just said it's huge, and yep. So obviously I did check with her that it wasn't anything to do with any possible osteoporosis, because apparently the tablets I now take after my cancer treatment can sometimes cause osteoporosis. But she says it's not that. But I'm going for a bone density test in a few months' time just to double check that. But she doesn't think it is. She thinks it was just literally bad luck. So I can walk on it, but it gets tiring and very frustrating, because once you're told you can walk on it, I want to do everything, but I can't, obviously. Okay, for those of you who don't do a lot of sewing, I just really want to say something like this and something like a tote bag, which I'm going to make in my next video, is fairly simple, not too daunting, and hopefully once you've made one thing and you get it and you can use it, hopefully it will spur you on to want to make more things. it worked with me, and that's how I've gone over the years, just thinking I'm more capable than I thought I was. But those thoughts was in my head a long time ago. I know I'm capable. As you'll know, you'll tell me off for not putting myself down. But I know I'm not an expert or anything, but I do feel I'm quite practical and can sort of adapt things and make things work usually. So you're obviously there's going to be a certain amount of sewers out there. I don't know if it's got sewers or sewists, but there's a certain amount of sewers out there are probably going to be watching and saying, but I wouldn't have done it like that. And please, if you are, just drop me an email or a comment and just say, you'd have done it different, because it could well be, more practical or better than the way I've been doing it. But all I do ask is that we get positive criticism, because we all do things differently, and we've all got different capabilities. So yeah, just bear with me. Also, when you're quite practical minded like I am, when I started sewing like years ago, I'd watch someone and thinking, I don't need to do that. Why are they doing that? It seems like a faff and a waste of time. And boy, did I learn. It wasn't immediate, but I learned over time that these steps that people are telling you, you do need to do, and there is a reason for them. It's things like tacking. I used to think, if I'm pinning it, why do I need to tack it? Well, why would I bother with that? That's just another step I could cut out. And being an impatient person, I just wanted that thing made in front of me. Another thing is, well, even pinning. I think when you are possibly expert, you can maybe sometimes get away without pinning. And nowadays you can get there's a double-sided tape. I think some places it's called Wonder Tape. And that's really good, because you can just stick that between your two layers of fabric and it keeps it in place, which is fantastic when you're using quite slippery fabrics. And I was reluctant to buy that actually for a while, because it wasn't particularly cheap, but you don't have to, you can just use little bits of it, make it eke out a little bit longer. You haven't got to use a long strip of it all the time. And I did for a while on bags and things, I was using double-sided crafting tape, which did the same job. And I'm really still not sure whether it washes the same way in the same way that the Wonder Tape does, but it seems exactly the same to me. Another thing is when you've got a pattern and you've cut your pattern out, you'll find sometimes there'll be little notches which are like a little triangle on the edge of the pattern, or they might just be a little line, as in like a notch. And I used to just think, I don't use them, this is obvious, isn't it? The bits go together and that's it. Until I went wrong. And you learn after you've started actually doing as you're told, cutting the notches out, cutting the slits, that when it comes to it, you match those notches together, which means you're putting the exact right pieces together for your garment or for your project to work. Sometimes there'll be 2 notches, so it's 2 to 2. So, and but sometimes, in very odd occasions, I've seen 3 notches. But it's important that you do that, and especially when you're making clothes, there'll be around an armhole, things like that, which is quite important to obviously get that lined up. Another step I used to skip was pressing. I've learnt over years that it's extremely important, really, to press. So every time you sew a seam, so press it open and flatten it, and it just makes it a neater job. And also, if you've then got to top stitch it, it's nice and flat for you to top stitch on the other side. And it comes with, if you're doing pleats, press them in place. If you're doing a hem, press that in place. And it all makes it keeps your line, and it makes it that much easier to stitch. And of course, once you've sewn it, press it afterwards, and it looks so much more professional. So I'd say never skip that. And also, if you, like today, mine's a prime example, as you'll see, because I've it's a little bit more of a faff for me at the moment to get the ironing board and everything out. Some of my fabric is a little bit wrinkled. If that was ironed flat, it would just look so much nicer, and I'm praying that it's exact measurements. I do press it as I'm measuring it, so it should be absolutely fine. But if it's pressed flat, you know the measurements are exact, because you can imagine as a fold could then decrease your measurement, or once it's flattened it'll be increase your measurement by, you know, about 1 centimetre or something, depending on the crease. But yeah, so never skip the pressing part either if you can help it. Press as you go. Today, don't do as I'm doing, do as you should do. Some projects, like very often in bags, you might decide you want to put a pocket on the outside or the inside, and some people find it really hard to keep a square pocket square, and then you might have a round or any sort of shape pocket really. If you make a card template of the size of the pocket you want, and then you've got your fabric, which should have about sort of 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch overlap, then you could fold that onto the card and press it down with your iron, and then you should get your perfect shape to then immediately transfer onto the fabric, and then you just top stitch it in place. I will do that in a bag one day, but I mean, I'm not going to do it to start with, mainly because for you that haven't done this sort of thing very much, I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, so we're keeping it quite basic to start with. Another thing, when you're making a project, you'll often be advised to use stabiliser or interfacing. These come in different weights, and if it's a light fabric, you obviously use a lightweight stabiliser. It can be expensive, but it's worth buying, and you can buy it glue on or iron on. Iron on is obviously simpler, but you must remember when you do have an iron on, when you fill the interfacing, you need the rough side, which is the side with the adhesive on, and that goes onto the fabric, and then you iron the other side. But I would advise using a piece of cotton or something on the other side as well, just because otherwise your iron is going to stick to the interfacing, and then your iron's mucked up as well. And we all know what that's like, trying to clean a mucky iron. Also, I personally, this is not an advice, this is what I do. As I've said, this is what these vlogs are going to be, what I do. I use, most of you all know, when you buy an inner for your cushions, it comes in a certain sort of fabric, white fabric, sort of almost papery feel to it. And over time, but when I've had cushions that have just gone flat, don't look good anymore, I take the inners out, I save that stuffing and put that in a bag for another project, and I use the outer casing as a stabiliser for things like bags and maybe another cushion. And it's more substantial, which is good for bags, and it's no adhesive on this at all. And I just use a spray on like home glue, textile glue, and I spray that on both the fabric and the stabiliser, and stick them together and allow that to dry. Then I sew with it, and it sort of gives your project structure. If you sort of stood it on the table, it would, like this one, this is my one just to show you what I make. But this one, it's a little bit more sort of floppy. But if I'd put stabiliser in that, it would stand better. And the one I'm going to show you to make today, I'm going to put that stabiliser in. But I also went to a fabric shop where I was on holiday, and there was this big bag. In fact, it wasn't a fabric shop, it was a charity shop. It was a big bag of what I thought was normal stabiliser. And when I got home, it was a lot of that. So someone else has obviously had that idea, they're not used it all. So I've got metres and metres of it, which was fantastic. You know, you can imagine this big bag of stabiliser I can use for about €3. I love a bargain. So yeah, so I got that. also, as you know, because I recycle, these sort of things, bags and bottle bags, can be made from scraps you've got. You'll see in one of my thumbnails, I'll show a box of scraps. I've got 4 or 5 of these boxes and I've colour coded them. When I get to show you my craft room, when I'm back able to get upstairs, I will show you exactly what's in my room and the sort of things I use. And this, say, the bottle bag today has come from some scraps that I've had. And yeah, I mean, if you're getting rid of some clothes and you feel you love the fabric but you can't wear it anymore, dismantle that bit of clothing and cut it into squares, give yourself a scrap bin. You can use that fabric for future projects. So, I mean, the bag I'm making after this one, you'll say in my bag, when I showed my bags, there was like a tartan, red and white tartan. I had a smaller amount of fabric left after that, so my next tote bag I'm going to show you is out of that same fabric. So again, if I can use everything, I will use everything, and even the pieces that are cut off I'll put into a bag, and at some point, once I've got enough, and I think I already have actually, I'm going to make a big round footrest or puff, whatever you want to call it, and stuff it with all that fabric. Everything's used, so it's brilliant. But obviously before I do that, the fabric is going to have to be stabilised with some of the fabric, the stabiliser that I've just shown you. Oh, the bottle I'm using, this particular one, the one I'm making the thing for, is, I think it's this is to fit a 260ml bottle. Now you can get bigger bottles, I think up to maybe even 500ml. I thought all the bottles were the same diameter, like here. I thought they were the same diameter here, but they're not, because my friend's got the taller version, and I thought, well, maybe I could use that same diameter in a longer version for that, but it's not an ideal thing anyway, to be perfectly honest. It's just a fraction fatter, but obviously that much heavier. So if you're going to have that hanging around or across your body when you're walking, and it's heavier, it's going to push on your shoulder, and all of you of a similar age to me will know that can take its toll, and you end up with a neck ache and everything. Was this one is just a nice size, as I say. It's just enough for sipping as you're walking. Right, okay, we're going to get on with that's all the chat for now done with, but now I'm going to show you the pieces and how I'm going to construct them, and we'll just sort of chat along the way. But you won't see me now because I have to angle the camera down to show you, and I've got a big flash cam with a big huge lens, so I can't be showing you me at the same time. And to be honest, if you could see me at the same time, that would mean the project is too far away for you to see anyway. So let's get on with this. So you've got 2 pieces. One is for the outer layer, and one is to make a lining. So you've got that. Now on the outer layer, we're going to put a piece of that stabiliser on that I've just been talking about. That will give the outside its structure. And before we do any sewing, we will need to do that. I mean, in an ideal situation as well, I would be pressing this, because, as I say again, because of my situation, I'm not able to get up and keep using the iron, unfortunately. So yeah, so that'll be glued on and it'll be dried, and then that'll be ready to sew. Then the handles, or the strap should I just say, is one piece of fabric with, as you can see, because I use scraps, I've got a little piece in the middle that's a slightly different fabric, or it is a different fabric, but it's still cotton, and this is 136 centimetres long, and it is 8 centimetres width, sorry. Because I'm working in centimetres, it's very hard for me to work out the inches. So I really hope and apologise that, I mean, I'm going to put the inches on the screen, but I was never very good at maths. So if I've got the measurements there wrong, I can please note the centimetres, and I'm sure if you're able to, you can convert into inches. I know that's not very helpful, but I'm not very good at maths. And then, so you've got that, and then you'll need a piece of stabiliser to strengthen that strap as well. As I say, I'll show you how to make that as we go along. Okay, as you see, off camera, I decided that, especially with the strap, it was too big a piece to try and glue on our dining table, and I didn't want to end up spraying glue all over our nice pine. So I've done that off camera. I'm sure you can work out how to do that, as I say, if you've got them the same. But all I would say is when you spray the glue, and both sides are tacky, get them together as quick as you can. Try and line at least one side up, and like you do with any like sticky back plastic or anything like that, just then work out from the inside out to flatten it out. You see, that's much more rigid now. And obviously I've gone a little bit, see, I told you I make mistakes. I went a little bit crooked, and I've got some of the stabiliser hanging over the edge, so I just cut that off. And the strap is now more substantial too. I don't always stabilise the handle, I must admit, but it does depend on the fabric. But I just thought this time I would. Okay, so I'm just going to, off camera, just trim off my raw edges, and I'll be back with you. There we go. So I've trimmed all the edges off. Now the next stage when I make anything is I would, to secure all the raw edges and to stop them fraying, and sometimes there probably might even be something that frays, but I very often prefer to serge the edges, which is basically, those of you who don't know, is a machine that serges just the edges. I mean, if you look on a lot of your clothing, you'll see the hems are very often got a zigzag on, which is what you do with a serging machine, or a cover lock machine, which is another one. So I would either, as I say, use zigzag on my machine, like a zigzag stitch on the machine, all around the edges, just to secure that and stop it fraying. Or you can just use pinking shears, which is the scissors with the zigzag, and cut that all around. So I'll do that now. I might put you on a bit faster, just so you haven't got to sit and watch me do the whole thing, but this is basically what you need to do, just to keep it from fraying all the way around. Try and keep it close to the edge, because otherwise you're going to take too much off of your width of your strap. It won't make too much difference because it will all be folded inside, but don't go too mad, just right on the edge. Sometimes these pinking shears can be a bit stiff, no matter whether I use them on paper or fabric, but they're quite a stiff scissor to use. So if you've got arthritis or delicate hands, I would try and suggest really to use an overlocker or your zigzag. I'm just showing you today. See, all my scraps, they all get kept and keep them in a pile, and they go in my scrap bag, as I said, for my stuffing of my footstool, or foot puff, whatever you want to call it. Oh, it's lunchtime. I can hear the church bells ringing at 12 o'clock. That's something that took us a long time to get used to when we moved here. We get the bells at 7 o'clock in the morning. They do they ring 7 times, and then they ring 3 sets of 3 rings, and then are continuous for about a minute, And this is all goes back to days when they used to have to call the farmers to church. And it did take a long time to get used to. And after a while, it just, I don't know, it might sound a bit bizarre, but when we used to hear it, there was something about it that just made you feel like you belonged. I know you're going to think I'm weird, but that's the feeling we had. And now, most of the time, we don't even notice them because it's just part of everyday living here, so we don't notice. Occasionally, we'll get someone stay in the gîte and they say the bells woke them up in the morning, but I must admit that was before we installed double glazing next door. Like the windows are double glazed now, so they don't hear it the same way. But majority, I guess, love the bells. And if I'm in the garden, because I don't wear a watch anymore, if I'm in the garden and I'm not sure what the time is, you've only got to wait for the bells every half hour basically, because they ring on the past and they ring on the hour. So it's very handy. Okay, so that's zigzagged all the way around. I don't know if you can see just about. Okay, now I'm going to do the same on the other bits. Okay, so all my edges are now cut in a zigzag to secure them. I mean, to a certain extent, the stabiliser does help all that from stopping fraying, but it's just an extra bit of security for me. I don't know if any of you know that you can buy well, heat erasable pens. These are brilliant for when you want to mark anything on your fabric, markings for measurements or where you're going to put something. Basically, you mark with this, and then when you go over it with the iron, it disappears. And they're fantastic. They're just so helpful. And you can buy these on Amazon. I can put a link actually below. If I do forget, comment and message, tell me I've forgotten. But you get, I think it's 4 different colours, and you get refills for them as well. Not too bad of money. So to me, it's a must-have. You can also buy like tailor's chalk and things like that, but obviously tailor's chalk and that, you can get different colours, but I've often found they don't mark or show up as well as these do. There are situations when tailor's chalk is the only thing you can use. Okay, so that's obviously all cut. Now we're going to start constructing, and we're going to put the 2 side seams together. I mean, as this is a square, it doesn't matter whether I go that way or that way. But I think, actually looking at it, I think I want my pattern as in a stripe to go downwards. So we're going to go right sides together and line these up together like that. In a normal situation, like I'm pinning now, but in a normal situation with something like this, I would use my quilting clips like that, and you just clip them on the edge of the fabric like that, and it's just simpler. They're a little bit more bulky, but there's no, your fingers aren't getting pricked, and they're easier to find, all that sort of thing, and they just hold it together in place nicely. But because all my clips are upstairs, I'm not using those, I'm using pins. It's a bit of an, just showing you about making do with what you've got as well. You haven't got to have all this flash equipment, you just use what you've got. Okay, so we've got 1 seam to make. We're going to do 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch down there. I've got my magnet marking the line on them, because you've got lines on your machine which show you which edge seam allowance you want, and I generally use the 3/8 of an inch which is on there, or centimetre. You can buy magnetic guides to do this, or you can put tape like a masking tape or painter's tape, and put that there, and then as long as you make sure your edge of your fabric matches the edge of the tape, your your seam allowance will be correct and straight. Don't watch what the needle's doing. You always watch where your fabric is and follow the line for your thing. I mean, if you really want to, use one of the heat erasable pens. I can't remember if I've already told you about that, but the heat erasable pens, and you can mark with your ruler and then put a line in, and then you can have a line to follow if you really want to. And obviously then once you can iron it afterwards to get rid of the marks. So but what I've got actually, I had a magnetic little plastic pot that I used to put my pins in, and which was great, and it's great because you can hover it over your pins and pick them all up. But it fell on the floor and it just smashed. And once it smashed, I saw 2 magnets inside, which is obviously what did the work. So now I use this because it's got a nice straight line. I place it on the metal of my the plate on the machine, and then I make sure the edge of my fabric just touches the edge of that as I sew, and that keeps it the right width. So we're going to start. I'll start just inside the seam, just inside the edge of the fabric, and then I reverse back first, and then I sew, and that holds the ends and stops the seam coming undone at the edge. Let's take one pin out. Excuse me today. I had a yoghurt breakfast, like a what do you call it? Overnight oats, and the dairy sometimes just gets to me. Okay, backwards and forwards again. There we go. If you've not done a lot of sewing, I'd advise going fairly slowly and carefully and making sure you're keeping your fabric straight. But the more confident you get, the harder your foot goes on that pedal and the faster you go. But be careful, make sure you know what you're doing. And stop as you get to the end, and we press back again to secure that end. Okay, there we go. Cut the ends off, keeping all my threads over there, my thread and scraps. Now here, so in a normal situation, I would press this flat in a normal situation, but sometimes, especially when you're stabilised on it like this, you can actually just finger press, just like that, and then it just keeps it open. So you can use your nail or just your finger and just keep it open, then you can see keep it flat. Now we're going to do the other one in exactly the same way. And pin it. This is such a small project, and you know it's not going to slip around, so just pinning is fine for this. So it does depend on your project exactly how you do this. Right, against the edge of the magnet, just inside the edge. Start with the needle in your fabric, backwards, and there we go. I've got a line drawn on my fabric at the moment. That's just where I made an error in my measurement, so the line is still there. That's nothing to do with my stitching. Slow down near the edge and go, press backwards, and that's your secure again. There we go. Now I've got 2 cylindrical pieces. Let's just push this back a little minute for a minute. I'm going to finger press this down for now. You're all going to think I'm lying. She never irons it. She never presses it. I can promise you I do. And I have a special little iron that I do this sort of thing with. And some of you sewers will know what sort of iron it is. It's just like a little travel iron, which is a lot less bulky and a lot easier to store in your sewing room. Okay, so now they're both sorry, outside in. I've disturbed there, someone trying to sell me electricity at the door, I think. Anyway, so yes, so we've got 2 tubes. One is going to stay like that. The other one eventually will turn the other way. But I've just realised I've got to do the bottom seam first. So we'll do that. Okay, so we're on the second one. This is finger press the seam again. Try and keep that seam central. I mean, it doesn't have to go in the middle, it can go on the edge if you want to. And then we stitch the bottom closed. Needle in the fabric, backwards, forwards. Okay, so it's like that now. So what we're going to do, this is a little bit more complicated, and when I think about it, some of you may not want to do the boxing, but let me just show you. Even if you don't box it, you can still put your bottle in, oops, like that, and you can still put the handles on. And it will still hold it, just that you'll have these little bits sticking out. Actually, looking at it, that's quite a good way to mark. It's quite a good way to mark your boxes there and find out how big you need it. I'm actually just doing 2 centimetres from the peak there, and then we'll show you. As I say, you don't have to. It just depends if you want it to look like box bottom or whether you want it to be like that. So what we do, as you can see here, you open it like that, and then you flatten it. I don't know if you can see. Flatten it like that. Open your seams again. Again, this is good to have an iron to press this open. So you've pressed it open there, and your seam is open there. Now you're going to measure 2 centimetres from this top down, and then mark across with your ruler and your heat erasable pen. So you get your line, you can use the seam line to go by, get your 0 right at the point, your 2 centimetres there, and mark where the 2 centimetres is, and take your line straight across, making sure you're square like that. And then we've got a line to follow. Oh, it's not come out. That's it. And the same on the other side, 2 centimetres in from the peak to there. It all depends on the project you're making, so how many centimetres you use from the corner. For a bag I'd probably use 5 centimetres, but for this, that's that. I'll stitch that. Sorry about the squeaks, that's my rubber feet on the table. Now I'm going to have to move the magnet because that's not quite in the right way, and we're not looking for a straight line on the edge here, we're looking just to follow the line that we've marked. Cut down, make sure my thread's around the little hook. So, hold the thread back. My foot pressure's moved. So, forward. Take it slowly because it's such a seam, you don't want to run off. That's it. That's one. And then the other side. So you pull it out like, so it's like that, like an arrow. Down, back, and forward, and back again. Cut that off. Oh, keep missing. That's it. Another one. Right. There we go, so it's like that now. Okay. And like that from that side. So what we're going to do now is open that up. I mean, it looks, what you want really is to make sure the two lines are parallel to each other, not running off too much. I mean, that's not perfect, but again, for what it is. So that one we will make the lining. And this one will be the outer, but we still have to do the, the stitches on the wrong side. So we pull this open again like that and flatten. Let me move the machine again. Then we need to, sorry, my finger set. So we do that again. Hold it down. Push open the seam again. That's it. Now we're going to do the measuring again. 2 centimetres from there. Line straight across. Square. That's not square. That's it. And the same on the other side. 2 centimetres. There we go, now I've got my 2 lines. Can you see that? Just about. And there. Now we're going to follow those lines to stitch. Just inside the edge. Needle in. Hold the threads back. And same that side. There we go. Right, now I'm going to, oops, wrong one. And actually, no, that, use that. No, I'm going to use the pinking shears because I'm cutting a edge that's going to be left raw. We cut it just outside the seam. Can you see there? Just outside the seam, cut that corner off on both sides. Again, so we're left with tidy edges. This one I'm going to turn back the other way. This is where you start needing tools to push it out. So, and then you can see how it's given a boxed bottom. Get the corners out. So that's your outside, and the inside we've already stitched, but now I need to trim the same way. 1, 2, and this one stays this way so that you can you've got a nice lining inside and outside. So now we're going to put the bottle into the lining, because I find this is an easier way to put the lining inside the outer, because the weight of the bottle helps to pull it in. So you put your bottle in there, get your outer part, and then put that inside there. It's fiddly. This. Oh. That's it. There we go. Okay, now the bottle can come out. And we've got the start of the bag. And you could make it a looser fit. You could add another centimetre either side. But at the moment, 25 centimetres square is about right. Pardon me. Oh, it's my breakfast again. So next we do the straps. But first I'm going to have some lunch. I'll be back soon. Okay, I'm back from lunch. Now we're going to construct the strap. Now the measurement I've used suits me, but if you wish to double check to see if it will suit you, you could, I mean, if it's going to be shorter than I'm making, that's not so bad, because all you've got to do is cut the same size as I've done and then adjust it to whatever suits you. But otherwise, measure across like that where the strap is going, where do you want it to sit on your hip. Okay, it's just to double check like that. But that's this one is the size that suits for me, and so far has suited my friends. So right, so you're going to bring each side in and bring the edges to the centre of the strap. Again, this is where you need to iron, but I am finger pressing, so they meet in the centre like that. Okay, all the way down. So we'll do that, and then we can, this is when it's a good idea to tack, because it's a long piece and it'd be nice to be able to just go straight through with the sewing. This whole bag, you could just hand sew it if you wanted to. I mean, something you could do while you're watching TV, but obviously it won't be made as quick. But if you're in no rush, what does it matter? Okay, all the way. I don't know if I've already mentioned it, but I mean, as I say, it doesn't really matter what fabrics you use. It's entirely up to you. But the flimsier the fabric, the more you're going to need stabiliser. So you don't even have to use stabiliser. It just gives it a better shape. It keeps it a little bit more structured for use. As I say, that other one I made, this one, it's very flimsy, but it still does the job. It still works. It's still there to hold it. It'll hold it on your shoulder. So it just slips in there like that. Holds it just the same. Still strong. The original pattern I saw to make one was for the same thing, but instead of making it a boxed bottom, it had a circular piece on the bottom, and then you had to then fit that in the outer piece, which is a little bit more fiddly, which I thought I won't show you that, but if you really want to make that, I can show you that another day. But I do think either using the boxed bottom or just flat is fine. I mean, you could do it without the box bottom, like I said, and turn it inside out, and that then you wouldn't have the bits poking out. You can just cut the edges off, but it's all down to you and what you want to do with your bottle bag. I'm not putting pins all the way at the moment, just alternately, so I know where I need to stitch. Just going to pause you for a minute while I carry on and finish this. Right, okay, there we go, all pinned. It's not tacked because, as usual, I haven't got the equipment down here to actually do that with today, so I'm pinning, but I'm a little bit more experienced, even though it's going to be annoying. So I'm going to top stitch down both sides at the top, and then what I'm going to do then to hold the centre in is to zigzag across that all the way, and that gives the strap a little bit more strength as well. Okay, so you don't need to use the guide. Let's hold this down. What I'm going to do is do this. I'm going to use the side of the foot as my guide on this one. In fact, I will put the magnet in place right on the edge of the foot to make sure I don't wander. There we go, put this down. One pin out. And stitch back. So say, if that was tacked, I wouldn't have to keep taking the pins out. Threads in the way. When you join a piece of fabric and you've got to stitch across it, it's obviously that little bit thicker, so you just grab the back of the fabric and pull it through. And now I've just noticed, as in classic sewer's mode, my bobbin has run out. So I'm going to just do that. Hang on. Okay, bobbin threaded. Let's start again. As I was saying before, if you join in fabrics together and you have to sew across the join, you just need to just put a little bit of tension behind there. As it goes across, just gently pull it over. I've got another join coming up now, because obviously I've joined scraps together to make this. There we go, so I'm going to go pull it gently. If you force it without doing that, you could end up breaking your needle. The same as you could break your needle by just pulling the material too much as well. Just gently give it a little bit of tension. Here's another one. Gently does it. Over, that's it. Also, if you don't do that, it can end up gathering up. Having a roller foot, there's a foot that you can buy that's got a roller on it, which is people use for quilting and that, because they go across a lot of joins. That will help as well. happening, it's separating a little bit. Keep going. See, one pin around the wrong way makes it awkward to get out. How did I manage that? Let's try to go that way, that's it. Definitely don't like working down here. I much prefer my craft room. Just across the bottom. That's it, needle in. And down the other side. Pin the wrong way round. I've done it on this bit as well. I've just realised why. Doesn't matter. Oh, you stop well before you've got room to get your fingers around it to pull it out. Wouldn't normally have threads in the middle of the strap like that, but it's because I ran out of bobbin, and so I started in the middle again. There we go. And there. There we go. One strap. Not perfect, but perfectly fine, put it that way, for what we want it for. In fact, I don't think, because it's stabilised, it's quite rigid, so I don't think I'm going to do a zigzag up the middle. I don't think it's really needed. It's holding itself quite well there. So now we're going to put it inside, between the two layers, the outer layer and the inside layer. You see there, that's the same height as my bottle, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. So up to 3 centimetres we're going to fold in. Let's use my rule. So we need to go down about there. I mean, it could be less depending on how high you want it. In fact, I think I'll do 2 today. We'll go 2 centimetres. So let's mark it so I know I'm doing 2 centimetres. There we go, as the top. So as I don't forget, I was scared with that pen, it's going to iron out when I get round to ironing it off afterwards. So there we go, so you fold it in at the top like that, all the way round. If you're really worried and you feel you're not turning it over enough, you can measure it all the way, but in the end, experience tells you that you've usually got it more or less right. And then we do the same for the outside to match the inside to match the outside. And you might even have to jiggle it around a little bit like I've got to now. It sometimes it just comes up slightly different. This is where again my clips would be better because the pins are going through a lot of fabric. That's it. And the other side, just turn it over. All around this. It can be a little bit fiddly, this bit, but take your time. Keep your patience. I know I haven't got a lot of patience and I still managed to keep my patience with it. There we go. So it's turned all the way around now. Now, I change my mind with this all the time. You can, it's fiddly, but you can machine it. Otherwise, you can do an invisible sort of ladder stitch all the way around by hand, which I quite like doing sometimes, depending on if you want top stitching to show on the outside or not. But I'm going to do machine today. And then we've got to find where we want the straps to go. Let's just hold it all together all the way around for now. All right, there we go. So now these straps are going to go inside about, I suppose, let me just double sure. For me, that's 3 centimetres in. So, and to me, 3 centimetres is near enough an inch. So, you know, that's what I'm going to do. Doesn't really matter where it goes. I mean, you can use your side seam as a guide. Let's go and take one of the pins out. I'm going to put that in. I've measured up to my thumb, haven't I? That's it. There we go. Make sure your raw edges are on the inside. Pin that again. Get in there. That's it. Well, if you've got a pattern like this, I've got to check, and it's going to stand out if I've not done it straight. Look at the state of that pin. Honestly, I need to get myself some better pins. I could do with getting myself a better machine. I mean, this is a basic, and it's absolutely, yeah, it works fine. But I do sometimes wish I had a slightly better machine with a few more things that it does, and maybe even an embroidery machine. But have you seen the price of embroidery machines? They're so expensive. All right, so now we're going opposite the other one. Who knows, one day I might be able to buy one. Let's take that pin out so we can get this in. So fold it in half or fold it flat and put that in there, and then just make sure it lines up with the strap on the other side. There we go. We're nearly there, guys. So that's, here's bendy pin again. It looks bizarre, doesn't it, in a way, this little thing with this big strap, but it certainly serves a purpose. It's very useful. My friend just came back from her holiday and said they went on lots of walks and she used hers all the time, so that was good to hear. Okay, so we're going to go, if you start at one of the straps, double check again, that's lined up. Again, if that was tacked, it would be holding in place, but I haven't got my needles, so frustrating. Let's get the thread ready. Where's it gone? Right. Always hold on to your thread for a second or two at the start, just to make sure it doesn't get caught up in the workings underneath. Now, to line this up, I'm using the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric, and as long as you keep that there all the way round, your line will be in the right place, your top stitch. Right. I mean, this, again, you could do something here. You could change it and put a fancy embroidery stitch all the way around, which can look nice. I've got one on here that there's only one really that I would use as an embroidery, and it's like a herringbone, and that looks really nice. when I put top stitch it on things. I've used it on some of my clothes I've made. Okay, let's go. Hold the thread. Back a couple of stitches. Come on. Oh, my pedal keeps going underneath the table leg. Right, back. That's it. Let go. Now we're going to go all the way. That's it. Now we're coming across the seam. So we're going to go slowly over the seam. Oh, I keep pricking myself. See if I have my clips. That's it. Slowly does it over the seam. It sounds like you're going to break your needle. It's nerve-wracking. If it's really tough to go, use your handle on the end of your machine and just do it slowly as you pull your material through, just to get across the fold. We got caught up here for some reason. Oh, it might be the pin. Yep, pin's in the way. Would have been easier if I put pins on the inside, wouldn't it? Never mind. Right, back where I was. There we go. Back down. Right, back over the fold. There we go. Slowly, slowly, slowly. You're going through quite a lot of thicknesses, so please take it easy and mind you don't break your needle. No, come on. No. That's it. I'm sorry you can't see what I'm doing properly because obviously I've not got the setup to be that close, and I think maybe next time I'll try and set the camera up behind me, but it's... There we go. That's it, another pin come out. Dig the needle in so I don't lose where I am. Oh, I wish I could have tacked it. Right. Okay, I'm going to take the next pin out so I don't get more awkward again. Hold it flat. Cotton gathering here now for some reason. Take that out in a minute. And we're nearly... So it seems to take ages. I've only got a little way to go, but it's because it's fiddly. That's it. And a bit more. That's it. Back again. So, right, let's see what we got. Scissors. Look, the cotton's all caught up there. I'll cut that in a second. Let's just tidy this up a bit. I don't know. It's another tool which is invaluable. This will be your friend. Those of you that do sew out there will know what I mean. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes probably a lot. This seam ripper, or as I used to call it, a quick unpicker, will unpick where you've gone wrong and you start again. And if you can get one similar to this that's, what's it called? Ergonomically better to hold. You've got the rub bits there to hold. And so long as this bit here is sharp, it's going to help you unpick your seams pretty quickly. You just need to remember the bit with the red ball on it is the bit that goes inside the seam so that you can push through the seam easy and it's not going to get cut, because if you did it that way, the sharp end that could rip straight through your material. But always take your time, be sure what you're doing. There we go. Let's get rid of these threads. I think it obviously bunched up underneath at some point, so let's snip those off. There we go, another one. That's it. On the side. Cut all your threads off because it makes a much neater job. Again, if it had been tacked, this could have been pressed firmly all the way around and that may have gone through the foot a bit easier. But at least my showing you without tacking and everything is showing how things could have been easier. I think what I'm going to do, see, I mean, that is pretty strong, and I don't think a bottle's going to really come, you know, break that. But what I'm going to do, just to make sure, I'm just going to do a couple of quick stitches backwards and forwards just to secure that a bit better. So I don't think it would do anything, but it's just me being overcautious. Edge of fabric on the edge of the foot. Where's my threads? So, across, slowly. That's it. And back again using the backward lever. Slowly. There we go. Snap the ends off. Also snip, not snap. There we go. Get rid of the ends. The other end. There. And there. And then do the other handle. Slowly down. Feel the thickness as the needle's going through. So we're going to go slowly. Hold the thread for a second. Again. So, I've got my little snip things over there. I prefer to use them, but my scissors are closer to hand. There we go. One finished bottle bag. Thread there. There we go. The bottle inside. I can't get myself in the right angle to pull it now. There we go. In. And across the body, like that. There we go. And there's your bottle ready to go. You just lift it up like that to drink it, or you just let it hang like that. Okay, I've done all different widths of strap, and the wider ones I think just sit a bit nicer on the shoulder. It's not too heavy, but as I say, if you'd have done one for the really big bottle, it'd been too big, too long, and too heavy. Let's take this off. Try and do things awkwardly as usual, Jan. So take that out. There we go. One bottle bag to make out of your scraps. You can make them as a present for someone. Have yourself some in all different colours depending on your tracksuit or your walking outfit. Okay, so if you've got any questions, please, obviously as usual, ask me in the comments below, and I'll answer as best I can. And I can only tell you what I've learnt by my mistakes and things, but that's quite a nice sturdy bag that will last for quite a long time. Okay, lovely to speak to you again, and thanks for watching. Bye.